In Lagos, where glass towers kiss the sun, Zara Okoye, a powerful black boutique queen, believes the city bends to her will. But a single act of cruelty shatters her perfect image, humiliating an elderly black woman she calls a witch. When fate reveals the woman as her lover's mother, pride becomes poison. Malik Ayodele, torn between love and legacy, watches Zara's mask crumble. What follows is betrayal, exile, and a tragic fall from grace until redemption flickers in the unlikeliest of places. This isn't a love story. It's a reckoning of respect, consequence, and the power of black dignity rising from ashes. Zara Okoye walked like the world belonged to her. In the heart of bustling Lagos, her luxury jewelry boutique sparkled like a shrine to wealth and vanity. With glass shelves lined in velvet and diamonds winking under custom lights, every inch screamed exclusivity. And so did Zara. Dressed in imported Italian silk, her heels clicking like judgment on the tiled floor, she wasn't just a business owner, she was a walking statement. She was young, she was beautiful, and she was untouchable. At least, that's what she believed. From the moment she began dating Malik Ayodele, the most eligible billionaire bachelor in Ikoyi, Zara's ego had grown wings. Malik was tall, soft-spoken, devastatingly handsome, and old money rich. He came from a legacy of business titans, but he carried his wealth like a whisper. Quiet, polite, and deeply principled. The kind of man who still said, "please," to a janitor. Zara saw him as her crown, and once she placed it on her head, she never looked down again. She looked down on others. To her staff, she was a tyrant in designer heels. To her childhood friends, she had become a stranger with cold eyes and a sharp tongue. And to strangers? Well, if you didn't dress the part, you didn't deserve respect. Her boutique reflected her new worldview. There were no price tags on the displays. If you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. If your shoes scuffed her floor, security would gently nudge you out. And if you greeted her without proper deference, she'd remember and likely remind you publicly. But Zara didn't care because Malik adored her. He gifted her a white Range Rover that turned heads in traffic. He paid for her weekend getaways to Cape Town. He funded her store, celebrated her ambition, and spoiled her endlessly. And for Zara, this wasn't just love. It was confirmation. She had made it. She had risen above the struggle, and those still stuck in it, they were beneath her. But Zara's pride didn't whisper. It roared. One Wednesday morning, that roar would become a scream, one that would echo far beyond the walls of her boutique. She would call an elderly woman a witch. She would shove her out of her store like trash on the sidewalk. She would curse her wrinkles and mock her smile. And by nightfall, that same old woman would be waiting for her at the dinner table, calmly sipping tea, as the mother of the man Zara thought she had already won. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Zara Okoye had built her life like a tower of diamonds, shimmering, sharp, and dangerously high. She never imagined it could all come crashing down because of one moment of cruelty, to the one person she should have respected the most. The morning sun over Lagos was unforgiving, blazing down on the pavement, bouncing off windshields and gleaming across the glass windows of Zara Luxe, the high-end boutique that sat like a crown jewel in the middle of Victoria Island. Inside, Zara Okoye was already pacing. Her wig was flawless, her makeup sharp, and the scent of imported oud oil followed her like a royal train. She had a lunch reservation at 2 p.m., a hair appointment at 4, and a dinner fitting at 6. But before any of that, she needed the perfect necklace. Something rare, something loud, something that would speak money when she entered Malik's family home that evening. Today was the day.
After 2 years of dating, Malik had finally agreed to formally introduce Zara to his mother, Mama Ayodele, a woman Malik often spoke of with reverence. "She's everything to me," he had said gently. "Just be respectful. That's all I ask." Zara, of course, had waved it off. "Please, baby, I'm a whole Zara Okoye. Your mama's gonna love me. I'm literally unforgettable." She was right, just not in the way she hoped. Inside the boutique, her staff scrambled to attention as she stormed in. "Ngozi, why is the bracelet counter still smudged?" she snapped. "Jerry, how many times do I have to tell you? Display the sapphires before the diamonds. Presentation is everything." "Yes, Ma," they all echoed, eyes lowered. At that moment, the chime above the door rang gently. An elderly woman stepped in, wearing a simple blue Edo and buba and a white head wrap that shimmered softly in the light. Her face was kind, her back straight, and her eyes sparkled with quiet warmth. "Good morning," the woman said softly, hands folded in front of her. "I'm looking for a special gift, something classic, timeless." Ngozi stepped forward immediately, offering a gentle smile. "Of course, ma'am, right this way." The woman leaned toward a display case and pointed at a delicate gold chain with an emerald pendant. "This one," she whispered. "It reminds me of my late husband's gift to me on our anniversary. Beautiful, isn't it?" Ngozi nodded. "Yes, ma'am. That one is part of our legacy collection. It's very—" "Excuse me!" Zara's voice sliced across the boutique like a whip. She stormed over in her heels, eyes fixed on the old woman. "Old, wrinkled, village-looking," Zara scoffed. "Ma'am," she said slowly, venom behind every syllable, "do you even know how much that necklace costs?" The elderly woman blinked. "Let me help you," Zara continued. "More than your entire pension, I'm sure." There was a sharp intake of breath from one of the staff, but no one dared speak. Zara wasn't finished. "You walk into my store with your market sandals and your old lady wrapper, touching my best pieces with those witch hands?" Her voice rose. "Do you want to curse my display, Abi?" The old woman's smile faded. "I meant no harm. I only wanted to buy a gift." "Buy?" Zara laughed cruelly. "For who? A village masquerade?" Ngozi whispered, "Ma'am, please." "Shut up, Ngozi," Zara barked. "You're paid to serve, not sympathize with street people." Then, with one swift motion, Zara stepped forward and shoved the old woman gently by the shoulder. "Out, now, before I call security." The boutique fell into absolute silence. Even Mr. Raymond, the elderly security guard outside, peered in through the glass. The old woman steadied herself, adjusted her wrapper with dignity, and met Zara's eyes one last time. "I see. God is watching." Zara rolled her eyes. Yeah, take your curses somewhere else, Mama Witches United." The woman walked out without another word. Inside, the staff stood frozen, hearts pounding. But Zara? She smirked, turned to the mirror, and whispered to herself, "She'll regret ever stepping into my world." What she didn't know was that by sundown, the same woman would be sitting at her dinner table, not as a beggar, not as a stranger, but as Malik's beloved mother.
The scent of grilled suya and coconut rice wafted through the air as the sun dipped low over the skyline of Ikoyi. The Ayodele estate glowed under the evening light, tall columns, ivory walls, a garden trimmed with surgical precision. Everything was set. Malik stood outside the main entrance, dressed in a custom navy blue agbada with golden embroidery. He looked calm, almost serene, as if this night, this moment, was the culmination of everything he had hoped for. Inside, the table had been set with care. Fresh flowers, crystal glassware, linen napkins folded like swans. Mama Ayodele, elegant in her gold lace wrapper and gele, moved slowly through the room, inspecting each detail with quiet focus.
Her steps were graceful, but her heart was heavy. She hadn't told Malik what happened earlier that day. She hadn't wanted to ruin his joy. "God," she whispered under her breath, "help me tonight. Help me protect my son from what he cannot yet see." Then came the knock. "Madame," the maid announced, "Uga Malik and his guest have arrived." Mama Ayodele turned slowly. The front door opened, and in walked Malik, tall, proud, smiling, his arm extended gently toward the woman beside him, Zara. She stepped in like a queen entering her throne room. A floor-length champagne-colored gown clung to her curves, and a diamond necklace, the very one she had selected that morning, glittered at her neck. Her smile was wide, confident, radiant, until she saw her. Sitting quietly on the far end of the room was her, the old woman from the boutique, the witch. Zara's body froze, her smile cracked like cheap porcelain, her throat dried instantly. No, it couldn't be. Not her, not here, not now. But it was. The same woman she had insulted, the same one she had pushed, the same woman she had mocked as poor, wrinkled, and cursed, now seated calmly in a golden chair beneath the chandelier. Malik was still speaking, unaware of the storm brewing beside him. "Mama," he said warmly, "this is Zara, the woman I've been telling you about, the one who has my heart." Zara's heels suddenly felt like weights. Her breathing quickened. She was walking toward her, toward the one person who could destroy everything. The old woman lifted her eyes. Their gazes locked. Zara stopped. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. Malik turned to her, his brow furrowed. "Babe, are you okay?" And then, in the most tragic twist of fate, Zara, panicked, cornered, desperate, whispered out loud, "What is this old witch doing here?" The words dropped into the room like a grenade. Malik blinked. What did you just say?" I didn't mean, I was just..." She turned to Mama Ayodele. "I'm sorry, I didn't recognize. I mean, you look different." But Malik's face had already changed. His smile was gone. His mother stood slowly, her hands resting gently on the tablecloth. Her voice was calm, but it carried generations of dignity. "So, you are the one." Zara trembled. "Please, Mama, I didn't know." "I know. You didn't know I was his mother. You thought I was beneath you. That's when a person shows their true face, when they believe no one important is watching." Malik looked back and forth between the two women, his mouth slightly open. "Wait, you two know each other?" Her mother answered without breaking eye contact. "This morning, I walked into a store to buy a gift for my son, to honor the woman he loves. But instead, I was insulted, called a witch, pushed, disgraced. Not by a stranger, but by her." Zara tried to speak, but no words came. Malik stepped back slowly, his face twisted with shock. "Zara, is this true?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Malik, please, I was stressed. I didn't know." "Stop." His voice was sharp, loud, final. "You didn't know she was my mother, so it was okay to treat her like trash?" Zara dropped to her knees. "Please, Malik, I was wrong. I was stupid. Don't let this ruin us." Malik's face was pale, his fists clenched. He looked at his mother, then at the woman on the floor, the woman he had loved, the woman who just revealed her true self. Mama Ayodele's voice cut through the silence again. "A woman who cannot respect elders, cannot build a home. She will tear it apart." Zara sobbed. "I will change. I swear I will. Please, Mama." Malik stood frozen, torn. His mother gently touched his shoulder. "Let's talk." He nodded numbly and followed her into the hallway. Zara remained on the ground, her makeup streaking down her cheeks, her heart racing. She had come here to be crowned. But now, she had just watched her throne go up in smoke.
The silence in the hallway was suffocating. Malik stood facing the window, arms crossed tightly over his chest, watching the garden lights flicker as dusk swallowed the sky. Behind him, Mama Ayodele moved slowly, her slippers barely making a sound on the polished marble floor. For a long moment, neither spoke. And then, "I don't understand," Malik whispered. "How can someone be so different in private?" His mother sighed. "Because in public people perform, in private they reveal." He turned to face her. "She insulted you, in your own city. She called you—" He stopped, choking on the word. "A witch, Mama." Mama Ayodele's eyes didn't flinch. "I have been called worse," she said softly, "by enemies, but never by the woman my son loves." Malik's voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me what happened earlier today?" She gave a small, sad smile. "Because I knew you wouldn't believe me." His shoulders dropped. "That's not fair." "No, child," she said, touching his face gently. "What's not fair is that I was right." Malik closed his eyes. His heart felt torn in two, between the woman who raised him and the woman he had imagined building a future with. He had never seen Zara like that. Harsh, cruel, classist. That wasn't the woman he took to dinners, to charity galas, to boardrooms. Or maybe it was, and he'd been too blind to notice. "Do you love her?" Mama Ayodele asked quietly. Malik hesitated. "I did. Maybe I still do. I don't know." She nodded slowly. "Then give her a choice." He blinked. "What?" "You saw her at her worst tonight, but now give her the chance to be better. Not for you, not for me, for herself." He turned and frowned. "After what she did to you, Mama, I am not giving her anything. I am giving you the chance to see the truth, clearly, without illusions." He swallowed hard. "Let her stay," she continued. "Let her try to make things right. But don't give her your trust so easily again. Trust is earned, not gifted." Back in the dining room, Zara sat in silence. The food had gone cold, the wine untouched. Her heart beat so loudly it drowned out the ticking wall clock. She didn't know whether to run or stay, cry or defend, beg or stay silent. But her pride, wounded and exposed, wouldn't let her fall apart, not completely. When Malik returned, his face was unreadable. He sat across from her, slowly, deliberately. Zara opened her mouth, but he raised a hand. "Just listen." She closed her lips. Malik took a deep breath. "My mother wants to believe people can change. So do I. But change doesn't come from apologies. It comes from action." Zara nodded quickly. "I understand. I'll do anything. I'll prove—" "No," he cut her off. "Don't prove it to me. Prove it to yourself." He leaned in, voice lower. "Because if you can treat someone like that, when you think they're poor, what happens when it's me who loses everything?" The question hit her like ice water. Zara's lips quivered. "That would never—" "You say that now,
But if the roles were reversed, would you still love me? Would you still respect me? She didn't answer, because the truth was louder than any lie. Malik leaned back. You're still invited to the house. You can still join us for family dinners. You can still try, if that's what you want. But don't lie again. Don't smile if it's fake. And don't think I've forgotten tonight. Zara nodded. Tears welled again, but this time she didn't let them fall. Mama Ayodele entered the room, graceful, poised, calm. Zara stood up immediately. Ma, I am so sorry. I know words mean nothing, but I promise I will change. The older woman studied her. For a moment the room held its breath. Then she simply said, We shall see. That night, as Zara left the estate, Malik didn't kiss her goodbye. He didn't walk her to the car. He stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching her go. And as she drove away, gripping the steering wheel tighter than she needed to, one thought echoed louder than all the rest. She had been given one last chance, not to impress, but to transform. And the terrifying part was she wasn't sure which version of herself would win. For the next few weeks, Zara Okoye wore a new face, and it was made of gold. She cooked, she cleaned, she greeted Mama Ayodele with reverent smiles and soft-voiced greetings like, Good evening, Ma, and Did you eat today, Ma? She started calling the old woman Mama, like she truly meant it. To Malik, she played the picture of transformation. She deleted her Instagram posts showing designer bags and champagne brunches. She donated to orphanages. She even posted a Bible verse with the caption, Working on me one day at a time. But behind the curated performance, the old Zara still lived. And she was angry. That woman humiliated me, she hissed one night into her phone, speaking to her friend Tola. In front of Malik, she turned him against me. She ruined my perfect dinner. Tola's voice crackled on speaker. Girl, calm down. Just keep faking it till she dies or something. Zara's eyes flashed. No, I'm going to make her pay. Slowly, with a smile. It started small. One afternoon, Zara took Mama Ayodele to the pharmacy to help pick up her prescription. On the way, she swapped the real pill bottle with one she'd tampered with, replacing the blood pressure medication with look-alike vitamin tablets. At first, nothing changed. But then, Mama Ayodele began to feel dizzy. Her memory slipped. She forgot names, dates, appointments. She's getting old, Zara said sweetly. Maybe you should have a doctor check for dementia. Malik frowned. He was fine just last month. I know, but people decline fast, babe. Let's not ignore the signs. Then came the bracelet incident. A priceless gold bangle Malik had gifted his mother went missing. They searched the whole house. Zara found it in the laundry room, inside one of the cleaning buckets. Mama, did you maybe forget you put it there? The older woman looked confused. I've never been in that room. But Malik saw the look in his girlfriend's eyes, part concern, part disappointment, and his doubts began to grow. She's just not herself lately, she whispered that night, curled next to him in bed. I'm scared for her, honestly. Malik's heart broke a little. I don't know what to do. Let me help, she said, stroking his chest. Let me take care of her. For us. Zara began isolating Mama Ayodele. She accidentally rescheduled her doctor appointments. She forgot to deliver her calls from friends and family. She complained about her to Malik more frequently, like passive comments like, "Mama said something strange again today. I think she thought it was 1989." Or, "She was yelling at Ngozi. I think she's confusing reality with memories." Little by little, Malik's trust in his mother began to erode. And Zara? She was thriving. The staff noticed. Ngozi did. Mr. Raymond did. Even the cook whispered that something felt off. But no one dared speak. Zara had power now. Malik gave her free reign of the house, access to accounts, decision-making authority. She decorated, reorganized, planned events. She was no longer visiting the family. She was becoming it. And Mama Ayodele? She retreated. She watched quietly as her world was remodeled without her. Her voice was muted, her presence dimmed. Her own son, once her rock, now looked at her with pity, not pride. One evening, she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the prayer beads in her hand. Her heart ached, not because she was being pushed out, but because she saw the danger her son could not. She whispered to herself, "This girl is like perfume, sweet in the air, but poison in the lungs." The final straw came at a family gathering. Zara had planned everything. The catering, the music, the outfits. Guests arrived in droves. Everyone praised her. Malik beamed with pride. And then, during dinner, Mama Ayodele stood up to give a small speech. She tried to thank the guests, but her words slurred. Her hands shook. She knocked over a glass of wine. Gasps filled the room. Zara jumped up dramatically. "Mama, are you okay? Malik, something's wrong. This is getting serious." Malik rushed to his mother's side, helping her sit. Guests murmured. A few took out their phones. Zara turned to the crowd with faux concern. "She hasn't been well lately. The doctors think it's early onset memory decline." The lie rolled off her tongue like butter. And for the first time, Malik believed her completely. That night, after the guests left, Zara made her boldest move yet. She sat next to Malik, handed him a warm cup of tea, and softly said, "I think it's time we consider other living arrangements for Mama." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she said, taking his hand, "I mean, maybe it's time for her to have full-time care, a place where she's safe, watched, taken care of." Malik didn't answer, but he didn't say no. Zara smiled. Behind the mask, behind the tea, behind the silks and smiles, she was winning. Or so she thought. The decision didn't happen overnight, but it began with a signature. A signature on a form that transferred ownership of Mama Ayodele's old bungalow, the one she raised Malik in, to a private elder care facility on the outskirts of Lekki. "I just want her to be safe," Malik told himself. "It's temporary, just until things stabilize." Zara had planted the idea like a seed. Now she watered it daily, with soft sighs, feigned concern, and carefully staged chaos. It started one morning when Malik rushed to a board meeting only to find his mother in the hallway, disoriented, clutching her wrapper backward, murmuring about a dream she couldn't shake. "She thought it was 1994 again," Zara whispered after helping her lie down. "She asked where your late father was. It broke my heart." Malik stayed silent, jaw tight. The next day, Zara forgot to lock the gas valve. Mama Ayodele, trying to cook, nearly started a fire. Malik came home to smoke in the kitchen and Zara crying in the corner. I left the house for 5 minutes. She could have burned everything down. And just like that, the decision was made. The home was called Golden Rest Elder Suites. Gated, clean, smiling nurses, fresh sheets, sterile walls. But it wasn't home. When Malik drove Mama Ayodele there, she didn't fight. She simply looked at her son, the boy she raised on bean porridge and bedtime stories, and asked quietly, "Is this what love looks like now?" Malik swallowed hard. "I just want you to be okay, Mama." She nodded, turned her head toward the window, and didn't speak again. Zara, of course, played the grieving daughter-in-law role perfectly. She visited once with flowers and a smile, posing for a photo by the bedside. "Visiting my sweet mama, #FamilyFirst." She didn't post it. She didn't need to. Malik had already given her what she wanted: full control. Over the next few months, Zara and Malik became Lagos's power couple. They attended galas, hosted business tycoons, and even made the cover of a lifestyle magazine, Modern Royalty, The Malik Future. Zara now had access to Malik's business meetings, passwords, and even his legal team. She convinced him to restructure the board of directors, replace 2 longtime partners, and funnel profits into quicker growth offshore ventures she said were genius opportunities. Malik didn't notice the warning signs. Not when his CFO quietly resigned. Not when the press began whispering about fraud accusations against his holdings. Not even when the government began auditing his primary tech company. Zara, always one step ahead, assured him, "Baby, it's jealousy. They see your success and want to tear you down. You need me more than ever right now." He believed her. Until everything fell apart. The collapse began with an email. One that wasn't meant for Malik. A supplier flagged a multi-million naira payment to a ghost company registered under Zara's cousin's name. That led to more questions, more audits, more accusations. Within 2 weeks, 3 of Malik's bank accounts were frozen. His tech licenses were suspended. Investors pulled out. His company, once valued at $100 million, plummeted to near bankruptcy. And Zara? She vanished. She didn't pick up calls, didn't come home. Malik found her 2 days later at a rooftop party in Banana Island, draped on the arm of Richard Davidson, one of the board members she convinced Malik to bring in. "Zara?" he asked, stunned. She blinked, sipped her champagne, then smiled. "Malik, you look stressed." He stared at her. "You destroyed everything." She chuckled. "You destroyed yourself. I just gave you the match." He stepped closer. "You used me." Zara leaned in, whispering near his ear. "I used your weakness, your pride, your need to prove yourself to a mother you clearly couldn't handle." He stepped back, fists clenched. Zara straightened her dress and walked past him, tossing one final sentence over her shoulder. "You were fun, but your net worth, that was the real love of my life." That night, Malik returned to his estate alone. The lights were off. The house was cold. He walked into his office and sat beneath the photo of his parents, one he hadn't looked at in years. He thought of his mother's warnings, her eyes, her silence. He buried his face in his hands and wept. Not just for what he lost, but for how easily he'd thrown away the one person who loved him when he had nothing. Zara Okoye had never felt more alive. Limelight bathed her every move. Paparazzi trailed her heels. Her name floated through Lagos's elite circles like champagne bubbles, glittering, dangerous, intoxicating. No longer the humble boutique owner, she now ran her own fashion empire, Zara Luxe Global, backed by new investors and a new man, Richard Davidson, a British-Nigerian tycoon with the charm of a Bond villain and the ethics of a vulture. To the world, they were a match made in heaven. To Malik Ayodele, they were a knife in the chest. Since Zara's betrayal, Malik had spiraled into silence. His mansion felt like a tomb. The staff had left. His cars had been repossessed. His phone rang constantly. Lawyers, debt collectors, old friends pretending to care. But no call hurt more than the one from Golden Rest Elder Suites. "Sir," the voice said politely, "we regret to inform you your mother's account has not been funded in over 60 days. If this continues, we'll be forced to reassign her to a state-run facility." Malik's breath caught in his throat. He had been so focused on his own downfall, he had forgotten the woman he exiled to make room for the enemy. That evening, Malik visited the home. The lobby was quiet, the scent of antiseptic strong. He found Mama Ayodele sitting alone by a window, staring at birds pecking at crumbs outside. She didn't turn when he approached. Only when he said, "Mama, it's me," did she blink. But she didn't smile, didn't speak. Her eyes searched his face, not with hatred but with something far worse, disappointment. Back in the city, Zara was throwing another party. High above Lagos, at a penthouse wrapped in neon and glass, she twirled in a gold dress, drunk on applause. Richard poured champagne on her diamond-studded heels as their friends laughed and filmed. "To freedom," she toasted. "To luxury. To never being broke again." "Tell them how you dumped Malik," someone shouted. She smiled wickedly. "I told him the truth, that his bank account was the only thing I ever loved." Laughter erupted. Even Richard clapped. But fate doesn't clap. It whispers. And that night, it whispered through tires, through wine, through poor judgment. At 2:04 a.m., Zara insisted on driving home, intoxicated, angry after a petty argument with Richard over a contract clause. He tossed her the keys. "Drive carefully, Queen of Diamonds," he mocked. Minutes later, her white Porsche slammed into a concrete divider off 3rd Mainland Bridge. The crash was brutal, the photos viral, the screams unforgettable. She was pulled from the wreckage alive, but broken. Zara Okoye woke up 3 days later in a sterile hospital room. Her legs were gone, both amputated above the knee. Her face, once perfect, now wore scars, some fresh, some permanent. Her jaw was wired shut, her hands restrained from pulling out the tubes. And the worst pain? The silence. Malik never came. Her friends never called. Her brand collapsed overnight. Investors pulled out, stores closed, influencers who once mimicked her style now deleted all traces of her. She wasn't famous anymore. She was infamous. 1 week later, Malik stood at the doorway of her hospital room. She looked up, pale, broken, defeated. And for the first time, she didn't speak. He stepped in slowly, holding a bouquet of white lilies, her favorite, once. She turned her face away, ashamed. "I'm not here to gloat," he said gently. "I'm here because I needed to see it with my own eyes." She whispered through clenched teeth. "Why?" "Because I needed to know that I wasn't crazy, that you were real, that the mask finally cracked." She turned back to him, tears rolling down the bandages. "I'm sorry." He nodded. "I know." Silence. "I lost everything," she said, "even myself." Malik placed the flowers beside her bed. "No," he said, "you sold everything." He turned and walked away. She didn't stop him. She couldn't. In the months that followed, Zara disappeared from the public eye. Rumors said she now lived in a quiet care facility outside Abuja, far from the cameras, far from her past. She rarely spoke, never smiled. Some say she stared out the window every morning at 7 a.m. for waiting for someone who never came. Meanwhile, Malik made another visit, this time to his mother.
The Range Rover had once been Zara's pride, a white beast of a machine, polished every week, scented with jasmine, its leather seats cradling her as she glided through Lagos like royalty. Now it was a symbol of everything she had lost. Twisted steel, shattered glass, a blood-streaked steering wheel, and 2 legs that would never walk again. The accident was front-page news for 72 hours. Socialite Zara Okoye in fatal-looking crash, survives but gravely injured. From Queen of Diamonds to Queen of Dust, a tragic fall. The public, once obsessed with her glamour, now devoured every gruesome detail. The comment sections were merciless. Karma is a fast car. She finally met the one person she couldn't manipulate, gravity. She lost everything, even her knees. But it wasn't just the gossip. It was the silence. Richard Davidson, her partner in business, betrayal, and champagne, didn't visit. He didn't even send a card. Zara's phone, once buzzing nonstop, now lay black and cold. No calls, no flowers, no friends. Just the slow beep of a heart monitor and the endless ache of regret. Days turned into weeks. Zara was moved to a private rehabilitation center outside Abuja, a place far from the paparazzi, but also far from forgiveness. The nurses were polite but distant. Her room was clean but cold. The only window overlooked a dry courtyard where broken birds came to hobble and heal. Zara sat in a wheelchair she couldn't push herself. Her hands trembled. Her reflection mocked her. The bandages had come off. The scars had stayed. One traced from her left temple down her cheek like a lightning strike. Another curled around her jawline, pulling her smile into something half-formed, half-forgotten. But it wasn't the face that hurt the most. It was the memory. The moment her tires lost grip, the sound of glass exploding. The second she realized her legs were pinned, twisted, broken beyond repair. And no one was coming. One morning, a nurse wheeled her into the common room, a space filled with quiet patients, humming fans, and old television reruns. Zara stared at the screen, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought of her boutique, of the emerald necklace, of the old woman she had called a witch, of Malik. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. She no longer cried loudly. She only whispered apologies to no one. I should have stayed humble. I should have loved him back. The nurse said nothing. But later that evening, a visitor arrived. He came without cameras, without flowers, without judgment. Malik. Older, thinner, quieter. He stepped into the room slowly, his eyes scanning the frail woman in the wheelchair, the woman he had once imagined marrying. She didn't see him first, only when he said her name. Softly did she turn. Their eyes met, and in that moment, they were no longer lovers, or enemies, or headlines. They were just 2 broken people staring into the ruins they'd both helped build. I never meant to destroy you, but I did. Malik nodded. You didn't destroy me. You freed me. She closed her eyes. I deserve this. He didn't agree. He didn't disagree. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, heart heavy. I came because I needed to see if there was anything left of the woman I once loved. She opened her eyes again. Is there? He didn't answer, but he walked over and placed a book on her lap. It was a journal, leather-bound, simple.
the same kind she used to gift herself every New Year. On the first page, he had written only one line: "Don't let your legs define your direction." Then he walked away. Zara stared at the sentence, and for the first time in weeks, she exhaled. Not in defeat, but maybe, just maybe, in understanding. The Ayodele bungalow in Surulere had once been a hive of laughter. Roasted corn on the front porch, gospel music on Sundays, the smell of fried plantains floating through the air. But ever since Mama Ayodele was sent to the elder care home, the walls had gone silent, as if the house itself had lost its reason to breathe. Until the day Malik came back. He didn't knock. It was still his house, his mother's house, their house. The door creaked open like it remembered him, and the scent of old wood and faded memories wrapped around him instantly. He stood there for a moment, staring at the living room sofa where he once sat cross-legged, doing homework while his mother braided his hair. He'd given all of this up. For what? A woman who saw his heart as a bank account. Later that afternoon, he drove out to the elder care facility. He didn't bring flowers. He brought a folded stack of papers, one that nullified the transfer, closed the account, and ended the nightmare. "I'm taking her home," he told the receptionist. "Sir, she hasn't... I'm her son." The woman hesitated, then nodded. Mama Ayodele was in the garden, seated on a bench, her shawl pulled tight around her frail shoulders. Malik walked slowly, his steps uncertain. When he reached her, she didn't look up, didn't say a word. But when he knelt beside her and gently rested his head against her lap, she placed a hand on his head. Soft, forgiving, warm. He whispered, "I'm sorry." Her voice, dry and quiet, replied, "Took you long enough." They both smiled, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like something had been mended. Malik moved her back into the bungalow the next week. He hired a nurse, retiled the bathroom, and brought in a personal chef. But more than that, he brought himself. He was there every morning, every evening, not as penance, but as presence. They played Io on the porch again, argued over seasoning, laughed at old home videos, prayed together. He was no longer a billionaire, no longer a CEO. He was just her boy. And for Mama Ayodele, that was worth more than all the diamonds in Lagos. The media tried to bait him back into headlines. Malik Ayodele loses empire to lover. Any regrets? He never responded. He didn't need to. He had already gained back something he never should have lost. His mother's trust. One Sunday afternoon, as the neighborhood kids played outside, Malik sat beside his mother, watching the world pass by. She turned to him. "Are you happy now?" He nodded. "I think I'm learning how." She smiled. "Good. Then you are already richer than most men." He looked at her, eyes glassy. "You always knew Zara wasn't the one, didn't you?" She said, "I didn't know, but I saw." He tilted his head. "Saw what?" "That she didn't see you, not the real you. She saw your money, your power, your last name. But she never saw the boy who used to sleep with a flashlight under the blanket because he was afraid of the dark." He chuckled softly. "You remember that?" She said, "I remember everything. Mothers always do." Later that evening, he went to his old room, still painted the same shade of pale blue, still lined with his childhood books. He sat at the desk, opened a notebook, and began to write. A plan. Not for a new company, not for revenge, but for legacy. One rooted in humility, not status. He would rebuild not his empire, but his impact. Meanwhile, across the country, Zara stared out her window, gripping the leather journal he left her weeks ago. She hadn't spoken to anyone in days, but she had written dozens of pages, some angry, some desperate, some honest. On page 47, she wrote, "I built everything on the backs of others. I thought power made me untouchable, but I learned, too late, that power without love is just noise." She closed the journal. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time they weren't for pity. They were for release. Because while Malik had returned home to rebuild what mattered, Zara had just begun the long road to becoming someone who mattered at all.
There were no confetti cannons, no applause, no perfect Hollywood ending. But sometimes victory doesn't come wrapped in gold. Sometimes it comes in quiet moments, in a mother's smile, a son's peace, or a woman's first honest sentence in years. 6 months had passed since the crash. Zara Okoye now lived in a modest facility on the edge of Abuja, tucked away from cameras and curiosity. Her legs were gone, her empire dissolved, her face no longer graced magazine covers. And yet, something had changed. For the first time in her life, Zara was not performing, not pretending, not manipulating. She spent her days in therapy, both physical and emotional. She journaled, she read, she prayed. And slowly, she began to remember who she was before the diamonds, before the lies, before the hunger for status devoured her soul. One afternoon, her counselor asked, "Zara, what do you miss the most?" She stared out the window for a long time before answering. "Being seen, not for what I wore, not for who I dated, just for who I really am." "Do you know who that is?" She exhaled. "Not yet, but I'm willing to find out." Meanwhile, back in Lagos, Malik Ayodele walked barefoot across the tiled kitchen floor of the bungalow where he was born. Mama Ayodele was seated at the table, humming an old Yoruba lullaby, flipping through a worn-out photo album. "Remember this one?" she asked, pointing at a picture of Malik, age 6, covered in chocolate cake. He laughed. "That was the year I tried to bake you a birthday cake and forgot the eggs. You didn't forget them. You just used salt instead of sugar." They both burst into laughter, a sound that had been missing from this house for too long. Malik had gone back to basics. No big offices, no assistants, no investor calls. Just one desk, one laptop, and a mission. He had started a foundation, one named after his mother, the Ayodele Trust. Its goal was simple: to fund and mentor women-owned small businesses across Nigeria, especially the quiet ones, the ones in villages, the ones without social media presence, the ones who never made headlines but fed families, built futures, and carried dignity like royalty. One day, as he reviewed grant applications, he paused at one in particular. The name on the form caught his eye: Z.O. Craft Studio. The handwriting was familiar. The story, even more so. The applicant was seeking a microloan to start a small business selling hand-designed journals for trauma recovery patients. The plan was clear. The tone was humble. The goals were honest. Attached was a personal note. "Once I thought power came from owning things,
Now I know it comes from building people. This is my first step, not to erase who I was, but to earn who I want to be. No signature, just two initials, Z-O. Malik stared at the paper. He didn't smile, he didn't cry. He just nodded and approved the loan. 3 months later, Zara received the funding. She used it carefully, not for gold lettering or fancy packaging, but for raw, recycled paper, for ink, for string, for meaning. Her journals didn't have her name on the cover, but her fingerprints were all over them. In the honesty of the pages, the strength of the bindings, the brokenness behind the healing words. One day, a young woman in Kano bought a ZO journal at a local market. She opened it, read the first printed sentence inside, and paused. You are not your past, but your past may be the first page of your purpose. She smiled. She didn't know the story behind the sentence, but somewhere, the person who wrote it knew. So who really won? Not the one with the most money, not the one with the last laugh, but the ones who turned pain into purpose, the ones who rebuilt from ashes, the ones who learned that redemption isn't loud, it's quiet and earned, one small, honest step at a time.